Toss aside the touchy-feely notions of love in business and recognize the real power it holds. Welcome to the Love is Just Damn Good Business podcast with host Steve Farber. Drawing on his work with a wide variety of companies from the Fortune 100 to smaller family-owned businesses, Farber shares inspiring interviews with business leaders and proven strategies for how you can create experiences that your customers will love by developing a culture that your employees, teammates, and colleagues love working in. Discover why and how love, at the end of the day, is just damn good business for you too. Here's your host, Steve Farber.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Love is Just Damn Good Business podcast. I'm your host, Steve Farber. Now, you may not know this, but the name of this podcast, Love is Just Damn Good Business, also happens to be the name of my most recent book, Love is Just Damn Good Business. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, I recommend that you do. Then again, I'm a bit biased. My guest today is John Mamon. He's the president and CEO of mPowered IT, a leading managed and cloud services provider in Atlanta, Georgia. John has over 25 years of experience in all areas of IT, information technology, including engineering and sales and leadership. His specialties include service design, increasing operational effectiveness, harnessing cloud and data center services, network security, providing objective guidance to small businesses. John lives in Woodstock, Georgia, otherwise known as Atlanta, with his two daughters and his wife, who he's been married to for 25 years, and is the author of a book called The Extra Scoop: Rediscover the Art of Great Customer Service. John, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Steve. I feel blessed to be here with you, and I'm excited to be talking with you today.
Well, the pleasure and the honor is mine. Now the reason that I asked you to come on this podcast is because I happen to know that you are a guy, as an entrepreneur, as a business leader, who gets it. And by it, in this case, I mean that love is just damn good business. Mm-hmm. That this is an important part of who you are and how you operate and all that. So I want to get into that as we go along. And I also am interested to hear about your journey as a leader, because your company is still in its rather early stages, at least this company. You've had others before. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious to know what your plans are for growth, because a lot of times, we lose sight of why, when I say we, I mean entrepreneurs. We entrepreneurs lose sight of why we started something to begin with. Sure. After we start to grow. So first of all, tell us a little bit about the company. Give us a high level there.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you noted in your kind intro, we're a managed services and cloud services provider. So for us, managed services means becoming the outsourced IT department for small businesses. We also can become the fractional department for larger organizations if they choose to outsource certain components. But generally, our target is, small companies, usually less than 100 employees, although we do have some bigger. So we provide the entire IT support stack, everything from help desk services to through the fractional CIO. And we do all the cloud services as well. So essentially, we're kind of a one-stop shop for that small business. You can do everything from their email provisioning to hosting their systems to doing their website for them, DevOps, development operations, hosting servers, desktop as a service, voice over IP, and everything that goes along with all of that, and especially cybersecurity.
So when you say a small business, what's your typical sized client?
Yeah, they're going to. They're usually under 100 employees. Like our sweet spot's going to be in the 20 to 30 range. Okay. But the design of our programs exclude no one, right? So a lot of service providers do have like minimums to do business with them, or they do have a certain size organization they want to work with. We can service anyone. If you have 2 computers, if you have 2,000 computers, we can work with you.
So a solopreneur, as we call them nowadays, is also a potential client for you.
Absolutely. They have all the same needs, and hopefully that solopreneur someday is going to have a lot of people working with them, and when they achieve their mission and grow their company. So, they may have different needs, but they also have a lot of the common needs too. They need to have solid email systems, solid presentation systems, have their computers working. A lot of times it's even more important because that's how they make their money. So their computers need to be secure. They need websites, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah.
So you're offering the benefits of a full service IT department to somebody who would never even at that particular stage in their development couldn't even dream about hiring somebody full time to do that.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, we're bringing all the processes and procedures, all the tools, all of the knowledge of a large enterprise IT department, and we're delivering it to that small business or that solopreneur at a fraction. I mean, like you said, couldn't even think about hiring a person for what we would charge them.
And how long has mPowered been in business?
mPowered IT, we launched in 2014.
Oh, okay. So you've been around for according to my advanced math skills, less than 10 years, but more than 5.
That's exactly right.
So you made it over the hump.
Yes.
Of the what's the classic? What do they say about most entrepreneurial ventures fail within the first? I know it's not 15 minutes, but it's.
No, it's they usually say in the first 2 years was the old standard.
Yeah, I wonder if that's changed.
Yeah, you would have to think it would, given the the speed of information and technology and what people can do. I believe it probably has, to be honest. Now, I might be just spoiled because we have a lot of startup incubator type organizations here in Atlanta, so that I'm aware of and I know people in. So maybe my view is a little skewed, but I think it probably has to a certain extent.
And you have, I'm guessing that a lot of those kinds of companies are your clients too, right?
Yeah. And it sort of ranges all over, but a lot of organizations, and we're working with an organization right now that helps early stage companies go to the next level. And they bring us in to help get the IT right, because a lot of times, they're focused on the widget they've created or the services that they're offering, and IT kind of gets cobbled together, and they worry about that down the road. So right. Typically that's something that we come in and help get right for them once they've kind of cleared that early stage.
Gotcha. So it seems to me that there is. I wonder if you face a similar kind of I don't know if it challenge is the right word that we do. What I'm hearing you say is that a company, when it's starting to grow, and even from its inception, needs to pay attention to its IT infrastructure. Because otherwise, if you're not paying attention to it until you know you need it, it's not too late, but it's going to be a big problem by then.
Sure. And there's some things that you can sort of, work around, but particularly in the area of security, right? Cybersecurity, that is so important. And so there's no companies think, oh, I'm too small. My data is not, important, but really it is. And the hackers, they love going after the small guys because they know they don't bother spending the money they should to protect their stuff. So, you've got critical intellectual property in an early stage company. You've certainly probably got critical data that you wouldn't want anybody to see or have. And, investors, they're going to want to know you're taking care of those environments in that information smartly. So.
Plus, it's going to have implications on your ability to execute for your customers as you grow.
Certainly.
So I said, it sounds similar to a challenge that we have over here. And what I mean by that is, it's the same kind of attitude that entrepreneurs have to the culture of their company when they started. Oftentimes, they don't even think about culture until they look around one day and said, "What happened here?" Right. It's not like it used to be. We got to do something about this. We need to install a culture. Whereas there's been one from the beginning. People have had IT from the beginning. It's just not necessarily the smart, configuration, et cetera. Same with culture, right? So
absolutely.
So this is is this your second venture as an entrepreneur?
It's my third, and it's my third.
I don't mean your paper route.
Yeah, no.
Other than that.
I was involved with with another startup that a venture company came in and backed and summarily asked me to leave. But and then I had another company similar to mPowered IT with a business partner that we grew and we were acquired. And then, of course, we've got mPowered IT here. So I've always been involved with small companies, though. I've never worked for big enterprises. It's always been small companies, startups, in one manner or another.
So let's take the previous company and the current company.
Okay.
You were the co-founder of the previous company, right?
Right. Yep.
Did you guys, from the very beginning, did you think about the kind of culture you wanted to create in addition to the product and service that you were going to offer?
No, I'm sure that, we had, I guess, a subconscious idea, right? Because, from my perspective, the company becomes who you are if you do it right. We didn't sit down and say, okay, here's everything that we are going to, this is what this company is going to be about. This is what our culture is going to be about. That was something I think that our focus early on was literally becoming a real company, as my partner used to like to say, getting to a place where we actually had revenues and, we could afford, some employees and so forth. So that was the focus early on. And I think really the core values came, probably in our second or third year.
So what brought that about?
I think, it's not I think, I know. It started out with, we had people that we brought into the company that were just perfect fits. They did things exactly the way we wanted to. They treated people the way that we wanted them to be treated. Our customers treated each other. And then there were others that came in and they were great engineers, right? They were really, really, really good at their job, but there was something that wasn't fitting. And, eventually all those folks ended up, either leaving or we asked them to leave. And I think that, what we did was we created the core values and sitting down and recognizing, here's what we see in people and the people that we want to be here. And every time that somebody would seem to not be a fit, we would sit down in our weekly meetings and we would kind of look at the core values and say, okay, they meet all these core values. One must be missing, right? So we literally engineered our core values out of, the people that we had come through the organization that we, just knew weren't the right kind of people for what we were doing.
So it was a discovery process for you along the way. It's like, if this person isn't working, at first glance, it seems like they quote unquote should.
Right.
So if they're not, what is it that's missing in this person's approach or their value set or their personality that's important to us that maybe we haven't articulated yet?
That's right. That's exactly right. So I think our values probably went through at least a half a dozen iterations before we finally settled on the final through the course of the 10 plus years we were in business.
Right. And one of the things, if I'm getting my chronology right, one of the things that you discovered along the way that helped you to understand your own values better was the radical leap, right?
Absolutely.
Was that? Yeah. Did I have that chronology right?
Actually, I have that here. Yeah. It was a big piece of the pie. It helped us kind of understand, I know for me, I identified so much, with the radical leap personally. And it was that passion, I was always a passionate person, but, I really could, again, identify with the message, and we took a lot of that and kind of spun it into part of our core values, if not most of our core values.
So just to give that context for people who are unfamiliar, The Radical Leap is the title of my first book. And LEAP stands for love, energy, audacity, and proof. Right? So let's establish that. So the core idea is about love as we often talk about on this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm guessing from this, and tell me if I have this right, because you haven't shared this with me, but I'm guessing that when you read The Radical Leap, it wasn't like, oh, there's something in here that we have never considered before. It was more like, oh, this is who we are. We just haven't used these words to describe it.
Right. In particular, so my role in the organization, everyone reported up to me, right? My partner was the president and I was the vice president, technically speaking, but the entire organization reported to me. And so because I was more of the, I think he would refer to it as I was more of the, the connected, had more of the emotion, with the people, was maybe a better quote unquote manager. I mean, those are the kinds of things I think he would say. So for me, it was, this is who this is me here. This is who I am. So I definitely made that. That's when I say that I really identified with the message. That's what I mean. And
then the name of that company was
Radical Support.
Radical Support.
Coincidentally.
That's pretty funny. Yeah. It's like, hey, here's our book. It's got radical on it.
Yeah, exactly.
And The Radical Edge as well. My second book.
That's right.
All right. So it was a confirmation. That set of ideas was a confirmation of how you already operated. It just made it a little easier for you. It made it more, I'm guessing, more conscious and intentional for you from that point.
Absolutely.
So let's fast forward a little bit. When you started mPowered IT, did you start with your set of values in mind, or did you let it kind of go through that iteration process again?
No, when I started mPowered, it was like one of the first documents I drafted and it was just me at the time, right? I mean, these are the core values of the company, and that the number one core value was to create a great experience for everybody we deal with. And that didn't just mean customers. That meant the team members, that meant vendors, anybody that was in our sphere, we wanted to have a great experience with us.
So experience has become, for all the right reasons, a popular way of looking at business, right? Creating... Mm-hmm. That goes back to the experience economy and that whole discussion. Creating an experience that customers are going to come back. They're going to come back for more. And the only way to really make that happen, I'm kind of paraphrasing myself here, if I could be so presumptuous as to do so. The only way to make that happen is to create a culture that's a great experience for the people who work here.
That's right.
Right? Because those two are obviously connected.
Absolutely.
I say obviously, but a lot of times we lose sight of it.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a lot of people who, are just, they're robots, or drones just showing up for work and, not really enjoying what their job is, they're not going to provide a great experience for your customers. We're in the service business, so it is so critical. And in fact, that's, having poor experiences myself with vendors, even if it wasn't somebody related to mPowered IT, is what, I would meet and sit down with people in my network and talk about who I am, what I do, and all that. And I was talking with a guy one day, and he said, "You are so passionate about the customer experience and customer service. You should write a book about it." And I thought, well, I don't have time to write a book. And he said, "But this will help you tell your story to the extent that people know, hey, you're so passionate about it. Who wouldn't want their IT service from a guy that wrote a book about customer service?" So that's what inspired me to actually write it. It is, having that great experience, having our customers have a great experience. It's so important to me. I mean,
so this person that said, "Wow, you are so passionate about this, you should write a book about it."
Yeah.
How did they know that you were passionate about the customer experience?
Well, I think probably like what just happened. We would sit and be having coffee, and I would just get animated, and I would tell them stories of good experiences that I had. Man, this was great. And I'd tell them, bad experiences that I had, and that was awful, and I'll never want to do business with those folks again. And so I think just in intimating the stories, that I had and the ways that that I go about executing our business, that was a pretty easy parallel to draw.
So he was it a he?
Yes.
So he experienced that kind of bubbling up from inside of you.
Yeah, that's
right?
what I would say.
As the topic, as your conversation turned to that topic.
Right.
Which means, of course, that you're coming from an authentic place in that is what I would gather. And that's the foundation of this whole thing. If you don't have, if you as the leader of the company don't have that yourself first, then how do you expect anybody else to create that experience?
Absolutely.
So that was your first value. What are the other values?
Yeah, so we want to make sure again that number one, first and foremost, that we create a great experience for everybody that we're dealing with. We want to make sure that we do one of my big, and it's a personal core value. It's actually even a chapter in the book is do what we say we do, right? If we say, hey, we're going to be on site at 10 o'clock, we're on site at 10 o'clock. If we say, hey, we're monitoring your server, we want to make sure we're monitoring the server, right? So that's kind of a kind of a loose definition of integrity, right?
Right.
And I'm a big do what you say you're going to do person. So if it's like a level of commitment, right? So that's the second. The next one is in no particular order except for the first one. Wake up with passion for our purpose. And that purpose is to create the great experience, right? So I want people to have energy around that. I want them to embrace, creating that great experience, and just be excited about it, and feel good about it when we get a review on Google, or somebody says something nice to them on the phone. I mean, that's what we're striving for, right? It's about, because nobody calls us to say, hey, it's a great day outside, it's 80 degrees, have a great day, right? Like with the calls we get, people have problems.
Right.
Very often, I mean, if you had anybody out there who's had a computer problem, how frustrating that can be. I get frustrated, when I have a computer problem and I'm in the business, right? So, people are frustrated. Their day is impacted negatively. And we want to give them the extra scoop, right? So they walk away going, man, that was awesome. Right. That's what we want people to be saying.
So the metaphor there is like ordering ice cream and getting an extra scoop.
That's exactly right. That you didn't even ask for. That's right.
So there's a couple of things there. One is I imagine you never get a call from a customer saying, just letting you know that our server is humming along perfectly.
Right. That's right.
That's not your.
We don't get that. We will occasionally get an email saying, hey, just wanted to let you know that so-and-so was just awesome today.
Yeah,
kind
that's
of
great.
a thing. But yeah, they don't call it to let us know things are working good.
So-and-so was awesome in their response to our problem.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, not just awesome. I'm just calling to let you know, or writing to let you know that that's an awesome human being, just
that's
because.
Right. That's right.
So when you say wake up with passion for our purpose, what I hear in that is it's very much a personal appeal, because how a person wakes up in the morning is completely, more than any other time during our day, is completely uninfluenced by any external circumstance, right? Mm-hmm. In other words, it's totally internal. How I wake up in that morning means that it's a part of me, right? As opposed to how I feel at the end of the day after I've been interacting with my colleagues and my customers and putting out all these fires.
Sure.
So that's a very personal way of saying it. I love that. And it implies to me that you have to be really, I imagine you're really conscientious and careful about the kind of people that you hire. Do you hire the kind of people who wake up with passion?
Right. So, I believe, and this probably goes for most businesses. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of arguments to be had where some business don't fall in this category. But for me, we can train technology, right? We can train people to be better at, solving a problem on a computer. What you can't really train into people is who they are, right? Yeah. That DNA, that fabric. And so, part of my process, and actually we've scaled to a point where I'm still involved in every hire in the company. And I don't do all the first screening and all that. But when I was doing it and hiring every single person start to finish with no other input, my screening process was around the core values, right? So the first, phone call and the first phone interview were questions all around, do you enjoy working on a help desk and why, kind of a thing, so that I could hear them tell me why it was, something that they really enjoy doing. And they said, no, really, I don't like talking to people on the phone. Okay, you're already automatically out the door. Or, I don't mind fixing problems, but I'd rather be desk side or working on projects or, so it was, I would filter out and screen out people that didn't meet the core values. And I would only meet with people face to face that I felt had it.
So how many employees do you have now?
We have a dozen.
Okay.
Plus, not including our retained folks that we use. But I screen them for the same way, that they have to be like-minded people or...
So whether they're employees or working on contract or whatever, they still have to go through that process.
Exactly.
Do you have are there any magic interview questions that you use?
I don't think so. I mean, I would, like I said, I would just paint, the questions would kind of paint around our core values. Others include, by the way, communicate. And the last one is embrace every opportunity to learn and grow. So I just ask questions like, hey, tell me about a time that, you were working on a project and you made a mistake, right? Are you the kind of person that goes, okay, I got to learn from that, I got to grow from that? Or are you the kind of person that, kind of gets frustrated, kind of a deal? And I'm being overly simplistic, but those are the kinds of things that...
Yeah, I think there's, I'm not an HR guy, in terms of my skill sets necessarily. And so I'm always I'm fascinated by the interview questions, because by now it's become conventional wisdom that we should hire, hiring for skill and talent is always really important, but we should also hire for values and somebody who's going to be congruent with our culture, et cetera. And sometimes you could just tell, right? I mean, if you're looking for somebody to create a great customer experience and you're having a phone call with them and they answer them as hello, hello, then that's probably not a good.
Yeah, I had a scoring mechanism that I used, which was somewhat subjective on my part, but I would grade speaking style and all of that as part of my screening process. Yeah. I will give you one of my favorites that I came up with, though, that I used to do, or that I would do for in-person interview. And I would ask them, I'd ask them a series of questions about their career, where they were headed, all those kinds of things. And then out of the blue, I'd ask them, if you were an animal, what animal would you be?
Right.
And just to see the reaction, right? To see, some people would be like really snappy. They'd have it. And then, I'd always ask them, why are you this animal? And, they would, because they work in a pack as a group. And I mean, right. You really learn some things when you kind of throw something off that they wouldn't be expecting. You can learn something about people. So that's one of my favorites.
I was on a call just this morning, as a matter of fact, with a prospective client. So they were essentially interviewing me for an event they have coming up here in a couple of months, and to come in as a keynote speaker. And one of the questions they asked me was, and I've never had a client ask me this before. They said, "What is one word that you would use to describe yourself as a keynote speaker?" And I said, my answer was, well, if I'm describing myself for the last 12 months, that word would be pantsless. Every speech I've given has been on Zoom from the waist up. And they loved that. And I got the gig, by the way, just so you know.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
So probably because of that. And it's actually going to be an in-person gig. And they said, and right before we hung up, they said, just please wear pants. So, well, if I must. But anyway, so my question is, you hire the right people. You want them to wake up with passion for creating this incredible experience for your customers. How do you transfer the energy that you have, like your friend who encouraged you to write your book picked up on? How do you transfer that to your employees and make that the standard in the way you do business?
Well, I think the first thing is, you to be present, right? And, with the pandemic and everything, it's kind of appropriate to mention that, we could literally, because we're a technology company, all of our systems are in the cloud, we could work 100% remotely.
Right.
And, but we don't. And I was asked that more than once by somebody on staff. And I basically said, we'll never be a 100% work from home company ever. I would rather not have the company, because one of the reasons that I have empowered IT is to create opportunities for others, to coach them to be better versions of themselves, to create this great experience, right? And that's having a culture and being able to do that is in my mind, maybe I'm old school, but it's just difficult to do when you're not in the same room together, or at least
right.
near each other. So being present, I think, is a big piece of that, walking through, saying good morning to people, asking how their, weekend was, and letting them know that, there's a factor of care and love, so to speak, that, goes into, being a team member here. And so being present is a big piece of that. And having that energy, right? When you're around people. So we have, regular, I keep everybody in the loop, what's going on in the company. Here's where we're winning. Here's some areas we got to work on. And, whenever, we have we're not perfect. So whenever we have an issue, it's okay, what can we do better? How can we learn from this so that next time we can deliver that great experience? And, so they're try to encourage that learning and growth as, again, the last core value. And I think that's where the energy kind of is sent.
So looking ahead to the post-pandemic world, and you're bringing people back together at some point under the same roof, breathing the same oxygen, et cetera. How many people will be under that same roof?
All of them. I mean, we're already back. We
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
You're back in the office.
Yeah, we were only out because we actually signed our new lease in February of last year, and March the pandemic hit. So for a while, I was the only one in the office. I can go because nobody else was there, right? So I had everybody working remote for that time. And then as time went on, we started coming back in, and a couple people at a time.
Right.
We kind of brought people back in a couple at a time. So we've been, I'll say 100% with a caveat, but we've been 100% back in the office for several months now.
Okay, great.
The caveat is we rotate out, an engineering resource or two on a weekly basis, just to create some more space in that area.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
So that's about 12 people,
right?
Thereabouts. Okay. So as you look towards the future, Mr. Entrepreneur, what do you want to create with this company? First of all, what? Just let's start at the real basics.
Sure.
How big, if at all, do you want to grow, and if so, how big?
Yeah, I mean, we absolutely want to grow, and how big is really a question of how effective we can be at maintaining our identity and that culture at the given size, right? So, we exited the prior company. We were in the high 30s employee-wise when we did. Can we grow past that place? I think absolutely we can. But again, it has to be a great experience. So if we get to a place where it's not a great experience anymore, then it's time to dial it back. To me, that's the measure, right? It's not about how much money we're got, and it's not about anything other than being able to create a great experience for everybody. And when that's not happening anymore, we're probably too big.
So do you think, this is kind of a philosophical question, but do you think there is a point of no return in terms of growth? I mean, is it possible on a cultural level? Is it possible to scale indefinitely? I mean, can you have 30,000 employees that can live and breathe that same kind of culture that you're creating?
Theoretically, I think you could. I think that you have to be so unbelievably good at hiring, right? That's the magic, right? You've got to make sure that because at that stage, you're not walking around saying good morning to 30,000 people, probably, right?
Right.
So you kind of can lose that personal touch. That means that your frontline leaders have to have that same message and the same kind of DNA that you had in the beginning, right, in order to keep that going. So in theory, yes. Is it hard to do? I would think it would be very difficult, again, because you would have to be so focused on hiring just the very right people.
So that's, like I said, it's a philosophical question because that's not in your personal plans anyway. But
right.
But if you were to grow, to ultimately to 30, 40 people, whatever it is, have you given thought to what steps culturally you're going to need to take as you grow? That's question 1A, or question A. Question B is, what advice would you have for anybody who's in that situation where they want to grow their company and enhance their culture, not compromise it?
So, again, being present, I think, is a big deal. I mean, if you have to be present, so if the temperature is off, right? You can't gauge your culture, from while you're sailing or the Caribbean or whatever, right? You have to be present in the company and for the company and for the people in it. So I think you have to be vested in that, right? If the plan is, hey, I'm not going to be here, I'm going to show up, once a week maybe, and all you're not vested anymore, right? It's you have to be there for them and with them. And I think, again, the key is, as an entrepreneur, of course, you're always trying to work yourself out of your job, right? You want the company to be as self-sufficient as it can. So hiring the people to do the functions that are necessary that, I am handling right now, as an example, those people have to share that same energy, that same DNA, for creating the great experience. And, that's what you got to do right. So that requires a great deal of patience, both before and after you bring them on. But the key in my mind is establishing your DNA early. And it's okay if you don't have it all right away, right? Like we talked about with the first company, the last iteration, where we developed them as we went, but have an idea of what you want to be. Who are you, right? And then hire to that and be patient and hire the right people, and don't get caught up in, this person is great at X, Y, and Z, and they've got the best skills, so I'm bringing this person in. I would say bring in the person that most closely approximates you in terms of your core values, and, train the rest.
So then if exiting is part of what you want to do eventually, you've got to make sure that you're, this is going to sound wrong, but you'll get the idea. You've cloned yourself sufficiently, or that the values are propagating on their own without your direct involvement every day. Once that's happening, once that's become just the standard, the way we do things around here, then I might be able to back off a little bit.
Right.
And it's an interesting take on it because the classic entrepreneur trap is overstaying their welcome, as it were. In other words, getting the company to a certain level of growth, and then assuming that the skill set that you had that brought the company to that point is going to be the same skill set that brings you to the next level of growth. And oftentimes, that's exactly when the entrepreneur should step aside even though their ego or whatever is kind of chaining them to their desk, metaphorically speaking. But I hadn't really thought about it from the cultural perspective before. That's really interesting. It's like I've got to be willing to let go when my skill sets have been surpassed by the needs of the company, but at the same time, I don't want to let go until I feel confident that the culture is going to persist. And I've seen a lot of heartbreaking stories with seeing entrepreneurs create something that's really been their baby, and then something changes and the culture changes, and the pain is so great that as an entrepreneur put it to me recently, what he's realized is that this was a guy who built a company from scratch, turned it into a really successful endeavor, and then ended up leaving the company for a number of reasons. New leadership came in. He held a stake in the company. New leadership came in, took a look at their values, and said that's all bullshit, and basically ripped it all out, and the company tanked. So can you imagine that the pain that must be for a person like that to see that happen to their baby and what they created before?
I actually experienced that. When there's all kinds of stories. Anybody who's been through a merger and acquisition, right? A merger and or acquisition. So after we were acquired, they didn't, rip up our core values or anything. We were operating still as kind of a separate entity of sorts, with our own management team, which I remained a part of. But how they did business was incongruent with how we did business. And when the honeymoon was over, that honeymoon period was over, right. Like you said, speaking metaphorically, it became so obvious. It was an affront to my personal values. It really was. And it was a real downward trajectory for me from there. And it was because of, that experience. And it was the experience of our existing customers that was changing drastically. It was the experience of our employees that was changing drastically. It changed everything. So along with, stepping out of the company, even when the principals stay behind, it can really, a situation like that can change the culture dramatically.
Have you ever had an experience in either the current company or the previous where you woke up in the middle of the night, or it just kind of hit you during the day where you thought to yourself, what the hell am I doing here? Why am I doing this? Did you ever have that?
You know what? I think in the early stages of the prior iteration, right? It was exceptionally stressful for me, and some of the sacrifices that, I asked my family to make. I had my doubts once or twice, I'd say. Certainly it happened in the situation I just described, one, where after we were acquired and I was still working in that organization, I absolutely had that, thought in my brain more than once. And certainly at the end, I just, it was, hey, I'm getting out of here, kind of a deal. So yeah, I've had that.
And then what did you do?
I started empowering.
You started all over again.
Right.
Is that persistence, or is that some kind of pathology?
I don't, it depends who you ask, but for me, I love what we do, and creating that great experience for our customers. I love that. And frankly, I wanted to get back to it because we had gotten away from it. Right. And it, through nobody's, real fault. I mean, we changed the market focus. Everything changed. So I wanted to get back to helping small businesses, creating opportunities for people, within our organization, and everybody have a great experience. I wanted to get back to that because that's what gets me excited. That's my passion. And when I wake up in the morning, my feet hit the floor, I'm thinking about how to create that great experience for our team and for our customers.
Great, very cool. So that's actually a really nice tee up for my my next question for you. To paraphrase the great world-renowned philosopher Tina Turner, what's love got to do with it? So as you look back, I've asked you to look ahead. Now, as you look at the current organization, the current enterprise that you have, and you look back on your career so far, what role has love, if any, what role has love played in this?
Well, certainly, as I mentioned, in my inadvertent tee up of that question, one of the things that I love to do is create opportunities for others, and again, coach them, help them take their skills and become the best version of themselves that they can be, and I really enjoy that, and I love that, and so I hope I'm answering the question, but it's about people, right? It's not about the bottom line. Although that's important, right? But it's not. It's to me, it's about people and taking care of people. And I think that this is just the way the skills that I have from a technology perspective, or this is just the medium and by which I'm able to do that.
Yeah, when you say it, it's not about the bottom line. Well, it is about the bottom line, but it's not about. But it is about the bottom line, but it's not about. You belie a certain kind of societal conflict that we have. Mm-hmm. This on some level, we think that love of the experience and love of a healthy bottom line are at odds with each other. Whereas really what you're saying and what you've said from the get-go is that that's how you get to a great bottom line.
One begets the other. That's right.
Without question. But there's some kind of residual resistance, guilt, I don't know what it is that we have, that when we say, we want to make money here, we feel guilty about saying that. And then when we say we want to create an experience that our customers and our employees love being a part of, but we still want to make money. It's like we have to justify one comment with the other somehow. Right. And it's all true. It's an all of the above scenario, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is. Like I said, we're operating with the right core values and with creating that great experience. That's what creates the healthy bottom line, right? And so, I share with our team, hey, we're not a not-for-profit here, right? I mean, we're in this to so everybody can make money, so that you can continue to make money, and as you grow and improve, you make more money, and we can't do that without a bottom line, right? So, but one begets the other, So we're a recurring service, right? A monthly subscription, if you will. So part of it is defense, right? It's keeping those customers. Well, how do you keep the customers? Well, you create the great experience, and the great experience allows you to get referrals, and the word spreads, and now you're playing an offense and getting more customers into the company, and that creates the bottom line, right? So, hey, and that's again why I'm very transparent when I talk to the team about where we are as an organization, the next things on the list that we need to take care of. We're at a stage right now where we're still nailing up good benefits, for everybody and things like that. So it's, hey, we want to, this year we want to add vision and dental, right, for everybody. So it's so they can be better taken care of, and they can better, you know what I mean? It just, again, we can't do that without a bottom line, right? Because otherwise you won't have the opportunity to come here every day.
Well, and simply put, otherwise you're not a business.
Right, exactly.
I mean, you could be a club, I suppose. You could be a hobby.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that. But right. There's a different purpose.
Right. But I think everybody buys into that. You know what I mean? It's important that everybody buys into, hey, I don't just show up here every day. If I don't do my job well, if I don't, create that great experience, you got customers leaking out the back door. and we're not going anywhere. We're spinning our tires, and nobody's here to do that, right? So we're all here to grow and together and enjoy what we do, and that is the bottom line.
And your daughters are how old? You have two daughters, right?
Yeah, I have two daughters. One is 23, and the other is 21.
So they grew up watching you go through, build several different companies, a couple different companies.
They did. There were some that I wasn't here as much, but yeah.
Yeah. Did any of that entrepreneurial bent rub off on them?
So far, no. I'm proud to say my oldest, the 23-year-old, she graduated with a psychology degree in 3 years with one of those Magna something after the names. I'm very proud of what she was a full-time athlete 2 of the 3 years, so I'm very, very proud of her. But not really, she's kind of like the creative side and not really, hey, what if I go out and do this for myself, right? And I probably haven't spent enough time trying to encourage her in that direction, but no. And then my youngest is still kind of determining, hey, she has the skills for sure to do it. She's got kind of this tenacious kind of a mindset. So I think she could absolutely be an entrepreneur and run and build a business, but she's still trying to kind of wrap her mind around what that's going to be. Yeah.
I was just totally just from a level of curiosity, not with any kind of judgment attached to it, because it's an interesting thing, a mindset that I've noticed a lot of entrepreneurs have. And that is, simply put, that if you're not an entrepreneur, you're somehow less than. In its worst case, it's like either you're an entrepreneur or you are living a life of servitude to somebody else. You're either an entrepreneur or you live in bondage. I mean, that's extreme.
Yeah,
which really bothers me.
That bothers me too. It bothered me when you said it. It like struck a chord somewhere, and a negative one.
Yeah. It's being an entrepreneur is great for people who want to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
But when I say to people who come, in conversation, and I get on my soapbox and do a little finger wagging, it's like, wait a minute, you're telling me you're an entrepreneur, right? Yeah. That means you want to build a company, right? Yeah. You want to build a big company? Yeah, I'd like to build a big company. Can they have a lot of employees? Yeah. Well, are they going to be in bondage? Are they less than the employees that you're going to? I mean, when you're telling me that either you're an entrepreneur or you're somehow less than, what does that say for the kind of organization you're going to create and the opportunities you're going to create for people? Some of the most creative, some of the most influential, some of the most joyful, balanced people that I've met have come up through the so-called corporate ladder. They've been, they spent their whole life, quote unquote, working for somebody else.
Right.
That's not a curse.
It's not a curse.
It depends on who you work for, right? It depends on the culture that you create.
No doubt. And
so as an entrepreneur, can I create a culture that's going to be, or an example is going to be inspiring to my daughters, no matter what it is that they do?
Mm-hmm.
That's the real question.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I would like to believe that my daughters see me as, somebody who, just, kind of makes things happen, right? My wife refers to it as something out of nothing, right? Creating and building, these companies. And I'd like to believe that they see that and as something that's special, that, that even in the way that I communicate, with them and try to help them and guide them, I think they see as maybe something that born out of that, if that makes some sense, when actually it's probably the inverse. But, I did inspire my wife. She bought a photography company, and so she's doing that with her sister.
Very cool.
Started that last year in January. So I encouraged her a couple of different times, when she, because she started working for the company. And, I'd of course hear, all of the gripes and and I'm like, why don't you just do it yourself? Kind of a thing. So I take credit for at least being some kind of inspiration for her.
I'm sure you are. So John, if people want to stay in touch with you and learn more about what you're doing, what you're up to, or read your book or all of the above, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, so our website is www.mpoweredit.com. That's the letter M, the word power, the word edit.com. And my email address is jmamon@mpoweredit.com. If you want to reach out, I'd love to hear from you. And I hope you check out the extra scoop too. There's a lot of good stories in there, and I think you'd enjoy it.
Yeah, we'll make sure that all those links, etc., are on the blog post associated with this interview. And this has been great, John. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me for the benefit of our fabulous audience, who I love so much. And speaking of which, to all of you tuning in today, thanks for doing so. We'll see you next time. And until then, do what you love in the service of people who love what you do.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Love is Just Damn Good Business with Steve Farber. Join us again next time, because when customer and employee satisfaction just isn't enough anymore, we are here to back you up with specific ideas to operationalize love to make an enormous difference in your business, personal life, and the world around you. Visit our website at stevefarber.com to leave a review. And don't forget to share the love with your colleagues and friends, because after all, it's just damn good business.